Sarah had always been different from the people around her. Growing up, she had watched her older brother and father serve in the military, hearing stories of bravery, danger, and teamwork. Ever since she was a child, she felt a pull toward helping others, especially in emergencies. But she also knew that joining an elite military unit as a medic would not be easy. People would doubt her, underestimate her, and sometimes even mock her. And yet, she was determined. When Sarah finally joined the elite unit, the excitement of being part of something so important was mixed with a heavy sense of awareness. She was walking into a world where every move, every decision, every word mattered. From the very first day, she noticed the skeptical looks from some of the soldiers. Whispers floated in the air as she walked past. "She's just a medic," some muttered. "She won't last a week out there." Even casual comments made by experienced soldiers carried weight. Sarah realized that her skills, no matter how sharp, were not enough to automatically earn respect. She had to prove herself through action, not words. Her training days were tough. From dawn until dusk, Sarah was pushed to her limits. The physical exercises were exhausting. Running miles with heavy gear, climbing obstacles, crawling through mud, and carrying heavy dummies meant to simulate injured soldiers. The other soldiers often made it harder for her. Some deliberately threw extra challenges her way, expecting her to fail. The instructors noticed this dynamic but chose to let her handle it. They wanted to see if she had what it took to survive and thrive under pressure. First, Sarah struggled. There were moments when she felt overwhelmed, when the doubts of others echoed louder than her own confidence. She saw some soldiers glance at her and smirk, thinking she couldn't keep up. It was frustrating, but something inside her refused to break. She reminded herself why she had joined in the first place. Not for recognition, not for medals, but to help people when they needed it most. That thought kept her moving forward, even when her legs ached and her lungs burned. Slowly, she began to show signs of her true potential. In medical drills where speed and precision mattered, Sarah excelled. She could assess injuries quickly, make life-saving decisions in seconds, and stay calm under extreme stress. Her instructors noticed her talent, and a few soldiers started giving her cautious nods of approval. But these small victories were private. Publicly, many continued to doubt her. Some soldiers whispered cruel jokes about her being just a medic, as if her role was insignificant compared to theirs. Sarah could feel the sting of their words, but she never let it show. Instead, she turned those doubts into fuel, pushing herself harder. Sarah also discovered that being underestimated had an unexpected advantage. While others were focused on doubting her, she observed them closely. She learned their strengths, their weaknesses, and how they reacted in high-pressure situations. She started noticing patterns, how some soldiers panicked under pressure, how some were quick to follow orders without thinking, and how some could be counted on in emergencies. This knowledge gave her a strategic edge. She realized that being underestimated allowed her to prepare in secret, to prove herself when it truly mattered. Despite the challenges, Sarah began forming small bonds with a few teammates who recognized her abilities. They became her allies, supporting her when tasks were too difficult and encouraging her when she felt discouraged. Their quiet encouragement meant a lot, because it reminded Sarah that not everyone had given up on her. There was a sense of camaraderie developing, even if it was fragile at first. These relationships would later prove invaluable when the team faced real combat situations, where trust and teamwork were as important as individual skill. By the end of the first few weeks, Sarah's confidence had grown, though the skepticism around her had not entirely disappeared. She understood that winning respect was a slow process. Actions mattered more than words, and every task she completed, every life she helped, was a step toward proving herself. She also realized that the journey would not be easy. The world she had entered demanded not just skill, but mental toughness, resilience, and courage. What made Sarah truly remarkable, however, was her mindset. She refused to see the mocking and doubts as personal attacks. Instead, she treated them as challenges to overcome. Each smirk, each sarcastic comment became a test of her patience, determination, and focus. She knew that one day, she would have an opportunity to show the entire unit that being just a medic did not mean being powerless. Her quiet confidence grew, and with each passing day, she was silently preparing for the moment when her skills would speak louder than anyone's doubts. By the time the unit was ready for their first real mission, Sarah was no longer just a newcomer. She had earned a foundation of respect, even if it was quiet and limited. More importantly, she had earned the self-belief that would carry her through the life-threatening challenges ahead. She understood that the road ahead would be dangerous, but she was ready. She was ready to face fire, chaos, and the judgment of those who had underestimated her. And deep down, she knew that when that moment came, she would prove to everyone, including herself, that courage, skill, and determination were not defined by titles, but by actions. Sarah's early days in the unit had taught her one important lesson. Nothing would be given to her easily. She quickly realized that being a medic didn't mean she would automatically be respected, and every day brought new challenges that tested her physically, mentally, and emotionally. Her colleagues weren't just skeptical, they were actively testing her, trying to see if she could keep up in ways that went far beyond what her official duties required. From the moment training began, the exercises seemed designed to push every recruit to the edge. But for Sarah, they were particularly grueling. She had to run long distances while carrying heavy packs filled with medical supplies, crawl through mud, and climb over towering obstacles. Every motion was exhausting, and often she found herself gasping for air, muscles screaming in protest. On top of this, some soldiers deliberately tried to make her life harder. They would set up challenges or throw her off balance during drills, assuming she wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. Some even mocked her, laughing as they assumed she would fail. Sarah could hear their whispers. "She'll never make it out there. What's a medic doing trying to be a soldier?" Every comment stung, but instead of letting it break her, she used it as motivation to push herself harder. What set Sarah apart, though, was her mindset. While others might have seen the extra pressure as unfair, she viewed it as an opportunity to prove herself. Each drill, each difficult task, became a chance to show that she could do more than what people expected. She began to learn not only how to complete her tasks, but also how to anticipate obstacles, plan her movements carefully, and stay calm under stress. Even when she was tired and sore, she found ways to remain focused, reminding herself why she had joined the unit in the first place. To save lives, to help her teammates, and to show that courage and skill weren't limited by gender or role. One of the hardest parts for Sarah was the skepticism from her peers. Some of the soldiers openly doubted her ability to survive in combat situations, assuming that because she was a medic, she wouldn't be physically strong enough or quick enough to react in dangerous moments. There were times when they intentionally left her out of exercises, assuming she would fall behind, or made sarcastic comments about her abilities. This constant scrutiny could have been demoralizing for anyone, but Sarah had learned to tune out the negativity. Instead of arguing or trying to prove herself through words, she focused on her actions. She knew that real respect would come only when her skills were undeniable. Despite the challenges, Sarah started to show signs of progress. In medical simulations, where soldiers were injured and time was critical, she consistently excelled. Her ability to quickly assess injuries, provide proper treatment, and keep calm even in chaotic scenarios impressed the instructors. They began to take notice of her determination and competence, and a few soldiers, even those who were initially dismissive, started watching her more closely. Some began offering small gestures of encouragement, like helping her carry gear or giving advice on tactics. While these moments were subtle, they gave Sarah hope and reinforced that her efforts were being noticed, even if respect was slow to come. Sarah also learned to use her underestimated position to her advantage. While many of the soldiers focused on competing with each other or looking down on her, she had a chance to observe. She studied her teammates' strengths and weaknesses, noting who stayed calm under pressure, who panicked easily, and who could be relied upon in dangerous situations. This knowledge, she realized, could give her an edge in real missions. Being overlooked allowed her to prepare quietly, learning from her surroundings without drawing attention to herself. One particular drill stayed in Sarah's mind. She had been assigned to carry a simulated casualty through a difficult obstacle course while being timed. Many of the soldiers assumed she would fail, laughing quietly as she started the exercise. But Sarah focused entirely on the task, moving steadily and methodically. She balanced speed with care, making sure the injured soldier was safe while navigating difficult terrain. By the time she finished, she had not only completed the task but done so faster than many of her peers. The instructors nodded in approval, and even a few soldiers who had doubted her offered hesitant praise. That small victory, though quiet, was a turning point for her confidence. As Sarah's skills improved, so did her mental resilience. She realized that being a medic meant more than just medical knowledge. It required courage, quick thinking, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. She began imagining herself in real combat situations, preparing mentally for moments when lives would depend on her decisions. Every day of training reinforced the idea that strength was not just about muscle, but about determination, intelligence, and heart. By the end of these early challenges, Sarah was no longer just the new medic being mocked. She had begun to earn the quiet respect of a few teammates, and most importantly, she had earned the confidence in herself that no amount of ridicule could take away. She knew that the road ahead would only get harder, that real danger awaited in actual missions, but she felt ready. Her training had sharpened her body, tested her mind, and steeled her spirit. She understood that the true test of her abilities was still to come, and she was determined to meet it head-on. After weeks of intense training, Sarah finally faced her first real mission. It was nothing like the drills she had practiced over and over again. The stakes were higher, the environment unpredictable, and the danger very real. The unit had been tasked with moving into a hostile zone where enemy activity was expected, and every soldier knew that mistakes could cost lives. For Sarah, this mission was a chance to prove herself, not just to her skeptical peers but to herself. From the moment the mission began, tension hung in the air. The landscape was rough and unforgiving. Dust swirled as the unit moved cautiously, weapons ready, scanning for threats. Sarah felt a mixture of fear and determination. She was trained for this, but nothing could completely prepare someone for the reality of a combat zone. Her heart pounded as she kept close to her team, ready to act at any moment. The first part of the mission seemed manageable. The team moved through narrow paths and rocky terrain, coordinating silently with hand signals and subtle gestures. Sarah paid close attention to the environment, noticing signs of potential danger. A broken branch that could indicate movement, footprints in the dirt, the distant sound of machinery or shouting. Her mind was alert, scanning for anything unusual while also staying focused on her role, making sure that, if someone was injured, she could react immediately and save a life. But the calm didn't last long. Without warning, an ambush erupted. Bullets whizzed past, and explosions shook the ground. Soldiers shouted warnings and scrambled for cover. For a moment, chaos ruled the battlefield. Many of Sarah's peers froze, unsure how to react. Some took cover immediately, others tried to return fire but were disoriented by the sudden attack. Amid all this, Sarah's training kicked in automatically. She knew that panic could be deadly, not just for herself, but for anyone relying on her medical skills. Ignoring the fear in her chest, Sarah moved toward the wounded. One soldier had been hit in the leg and was lying exposed on the ground. She could hear him groaning, calling for help. Most people might have hesitated, but she didn't think twice. She dove toward him, keeping her body low, eyes scanning for any incoming fire. Using the skills she had honed over weeks of grueling training, she assessed his injuries quickly, applying a tourniquet and bandages with precision. Her hands moved automatically, steady despite the chaos surrounding her. Another soldier nearby had taken shrapnel wounds. While others were still trying to find cover, Sarah managed to drag him to a safer position. She worked fast, speaking calmly to reassure him while monitoring his breathing and pulse. Every movement required focus. One mistake could make things worse. Yet, she felt a strange clarity in the middle of all the noise and danger. Training had prepared her for this, but her courage and determination carried her through the fear. As the ambush continued, Sarah began noticing her teammates' reactions. Some were still frozen, unsure how to move or act. Others were trying to assist but lacked the medical expertise she had. She realized that her role was more crucial than ever. Being just a medic, as some had said, didn't limit her ability to influence the outcome of the situation. In fact, in moments like these, her skills could mean the difference between life and death. During the chaos, Sarah also had to make split-second decisions. She had to choose whom to help first, when to move, and how to navigate dangerous zones without getting herself injured. Each choice weighed heavily, but she trusted her instincts and training. Her calm and decisive actions began to draw attention. Some soldiers who had doubted her watched in awe as she moved with courage, agility, and focus, saving lives even under fire. Slowly, their perception of her started to shift, even if they didn't say it aloud. The ambush lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. By the end, the unit had stabilized, and the immediate threat had passed. Sarah had treated multiple injuries, helped drag soldiers to safety, and even assisted in directing her peers on how to move wounded personnel efficiently. Exhausted but resolute, she realized that she had survived her first true test. More importantly, she had proven something to herself. She was capable of performing under extreme pressure, even when everything seemed chaotic. After the mission, the soldiers regrouped, assessing casualties and equipment. Some of the peers who had doubted Sarah's abilities offered quiet nods of respect, recognizing the skill and bravery she had displayed. While the praise wasn't loud or public, it mattered. Sarah didn't seek recognition for herself. What mattered most was that her actions had helped save lives and strengthened the team. She had begun to earn respect not through words, but through courage and competence. That mission left a lasting impact on Sarah. She understood that being underestimated could be an advantage. It allowed her to prove her worth in ways that no one could ignore. She had faced fear, danger, and doubt all at once, and she had come through not just unbroken, but stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever. She had discovered that true strength wasn't about being invincible. It was about acting with courage when it mattered most, even when others doubted you. By the end of the day, Sarah felt a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. The mission had been her first real opportunity to demonstrate her value beyond the label of just a medic. She knew that this was only the beginning, that more challenges lay ahead, but she was ready. She had faced fire, chaos, and fear, and she had proven that she could handle them. This mission had not only tested her skills but had also ignited a quiet fire within her, a determination to keep pushing, to keep proving herself, and to never let anyone underestimate her again. After Sarah's first mission, she had begun to earn a small measure of respect from some of her peers, but the commander remained skeptical. He had watched her during the ambush, noting her skill and bravery, but he wasn't fully convinced. To him, she was still just a medic, someone whose role was to patch up injuries, not face the frontline danger head-on. He decided to put her to the ultimate test, a task so risky that most soldiers would have hesitated. The commander called her aside one morning and explained the mission. A nearby village had been partially engulfed in fire during a recent skirmish, and some soldiers had been reported missing inside the dangerous zone. The terrain was treacherous, with burning debris, smoke, and unstable structures threatening anyone who entered. The commander's voice was firm, almost challenging. He needed someone brave, skilled, and calm under pressure to go in and retrieve any injured personnel. Most would have assumed this was an impossible or near-suicidal assignment. Sarah listened carefully, absorbing every detail. She could see the doubt in the commander's eyes, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt a surge of determination. This was her chance, not only to save lives but also to prove that she was more than a medic. Without hesitation, she accepted the mission. Her decision surprised the commander. He had expected hesitation, maybe even an excuse, but Sarah's calm confidence made him pause. For the first time, he wondered if he might have underestimated her. As she prepared, Sarah gathered her medical kit, ensuring it was fully stocked with bandages, tourniquets, and all the essentials she might need. She checked her protective gear, adjusted her helmet, and tightened the straps on her backpack. Her mind was focused, reviewing every step she would take once inside the fire zone. She knew this mission required more than courage. It required strategy, quick thinking, and careful attention to every detail. One wrong move could endanger not only herself but also the soldiers she was sent to rescue. When she reached the site, the scene was worse than she had imagined. Smoke curled thickly into the sky, reducing visibility. Flames licked at collapsed buildings, and the air was filled with the crackling of fire and the distant echoes of falling debris. The heat was intense, even through her protective gear. Most soldiers would have stopped, hesitant to move forward, but Sarah pushed on. Every step was deliberate, measured, and calculated. She had trained for emergencies, and now that training would be tested in the most extreme conditions. The first obstacle was a partially collapsed structure, through which she had to navigate to reach a trapped soldier. The beams were unstable, and each step risked causing more debris to fall. Sarah moved slowly but confidently, testing the ground before shifting her weight. She communicated quietly with the soldier, reassuring him that help had arrived. Using her strength and skill, she lifted debris carefully, creating a safe path for him to crawl through. Despite the chaos around her, she stayed focused, never allowing panic to take hold. Inside the fire zone, Sarah encountered multiple injured soldiers. Some were conscious and calling for help, while others were unconscious or pinned under rubble. Each situation required split-second decisions: whom to help first, how to move the wounded without worsening their injuries, and how to navigate through flames and smoke safely. Sarah's experience from previous missions and training proved invaluable. She worked quickly, efficiently, and methodically, prioritizing lives and making choices that balanced speed with safety. At one point, she heard a loud crash nearby. The fire had caused part of a building to collapse. Dust and debris filled the air, and she realized that the commander himself was trapped under rubble. He had gone in to observe and assist but was caught in the falling beams. Without hesitation, Sarah rushed toward him. Her hands worked with precision as she cleared debris, all while making sure she remained steady despite the shifting structure. The commander, usually so commanding and composed, looked at her with wide eyes, realizing that the medic he had doubted was now his savior. By the time she got the commander to a safe area, Sarah was exhausted, covered in soot, sweat, and minor scrapes. Yet, she remained composed, tending to his condition and ensuring that he could move safely. The rest of the soldiers began to emerge from hiding, some in shock, some in awe, as they realized the extent of her bravery. Her actions had not only saved lives but had demonstrated a courage and skill that could no longer be ignored. After the mission, the commander pulled her aside privately. His usual stern expression was softened with a mixture of respect and astonishment. He admitted that he had underestimated her and that her performance had been nothing short of extraordinary. Sarah, humble as always, simply nodded. She had never done it for recognition, but hearing the commander acknowledge her skill felt like a powerful validation. For the first time, the title "just a medic" felt completely irrelevant. Her actions had redefined what that title meant. That mission became a turning point in Sarah's life and career. The soldiers who had doubted her earlier began to see her differently. Not just as a medic, but as a hero, a leader, and a source of strength under pressure. Sarah herself felt a quiet pride, not from the praise, but from knowing that she had faced the fire, literally and figuratively, and emerged stronger. She understood that real respect is earned through action, not words, and that courage isn't measured by rank or title, but by what one is willing to do when the stakes are highest. By the end of the day, Sarah had proven something important, that a person's value cannot be judged by their label. Being a medic didn't mean she couldn't face danger, lead in emergencies, or save lives in the most extreme situations. She had shown, through skill, courage, and determination, that anyone could rise above expectations and make a difference when it mattered most. This mission was not just a test, it was a defining moment that would shape the rest of her journey. The fire zone was worse than Sarah had imagined. Smoke swirled thickly, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Flames licked at the edges of broken buildings, and the ground was uneven, scattered with debris from collapsed structures. The heat pressed down on her through her protective gear, making every step a struggle. Yet Sarah didn't hesitate. She had a mission: to save as many lives as possible, and that included the commander, who was now trapped under debris from a partially collapsed building. As she moved through the smoke-filled chaos, Sarah's senses were on high alert. Every crack of wood, every shifting beam, every burst of flame could mean disaster. She could hear the distant shouts of her fellow soldiers, but most were taking cover, unsure how to proceed in such dangerous conditions. Sarah, however, had trained for moments like this. She had rehearsed emergency drills countless times, but nothing compared to the reality of live flames and falling debris. She felt a surge of determination and adrenaline. Fear existed, but it was channeled into focus rather than panic. When she reached the building where the commander was trapped, the sight was alarming. A large beam had fallen, pinning his leg, and thick smoke filled the small space. He was conscious, but struggling to breathe, coughing and choking on the smoke. Most soldiers would have waited for backup, but Sarah acted immediately. She assessed the situation quickly, calculating the safest way to lift the debris without causing it to collapse further. Her hands moved with precision and strength, pulling the heavy wood piece by piece while keeping the commander calm. She spoke in a steady voice, reassuring him and giving him instructions on how to stay still and conserve energy. Once the beam was cleared, she guided him carefully through the burning debris. Every step required focus. The ground was unstable, and flames threatened from every side. Sarah used her body as a shield when necessary, blocking sparks and embers from reaching the commander. Her stamina was being pushed to the limit, but she remained calm, reminding herself that any hesitation could be fatal. The commander, who had always commanded respect with authority, now looked to her for guidance and safety. In that moment, the roles had reversed. The medic was leading the leader. As they moved, Sarah encountered other injured soldiers. Some were conscious and scared, others unconscious or in shock. She quickly prioritized who needed immediate attention and who could be moved safely. Using her medical training, she stabilized injuries, applied makeshift bandages, and even directed others who were willing to help. Her ability to manage multiple crises at once impressed even the most skeptical onlookers. She was not just reacting. She was controlling the situation, turning chaos into order with her skill and presence of mind. The fire grew more intense as they navigated through the area. Wooden beams fell, smoke grew thicker, and visibility dropped almost to zero. Sarah's lungs burned with each breath, but she kept moving. She relied on her instincts and training, constantly scanning for safe paths and avoiding unstable structures. Her focus was absolute. She could not afford distraction, hesitation, or doubt. The weight of the commander's safety, along with the lives of other injured soldiers, rested on her shoulders. At one point, a small explosion sent debris flying across their path. Sarah instinctively shielded the commander with her body, taking the brunt of the heat and smoke herself. The pain and exhaustion were real, but she ignored them, pushing forward. She knew that giving up, even for a moment, could cost lives. Her courage was not born from fearlessness, but from determination, an unshakable commitment to the people depending on her. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, Sarah found a relatively safe clearing outside the main fire zone. She had guided the commander and several injured soldiers to safety, tending to wounds, ensuring everyone was stable, and checking their breathing and pulse. The commander looked at her with wide eyes, a mixture of disbelief, gratitude, and newfound respect. He had witnessed firsthand what she was capable of under extreme danger. The soldiers who had doubted her before now stared in silent awe, realizing that this young medic had done what many thought impossible. Even after reaching safety, Sarah's work was not finished. She helped organize the evacuation of the injured, coordinated with other members of the unit, and ensured that everyone received proper attention. Her ability to stay calm and decisive, even after extreme physical and emotional exertion, further demonstrated the depth of her training and character. While others were still recovering from the shock of the fire, Sarah remained focused on the well-being of the team. By the end of the ordeal, Sarah was exhausted, her clothes and gear scorched, her skin marked with soot, cuts, and minor burns. Yet her spirit was unbroken. She had faced fire, chaos, and life-threatening danger, and she had prevailed. The mission had not only tested her physical abilities, but also her courage, decision-making, and leadership under pressure. She had proven that she was far more than just a medic. She was capable of extraordinary bravery, resilience, and skill. That day, Sarah had changed the way her peers, and especially the commander, viewed her. She had demonstrated that true strength isn't measured by rank, title, or role. It's measured by the willingness to act decisively in the face of danger and to put the lives of others above your own. Her actions inspired her team, challenged their assumptions, and set a standard for courage and dedication that would not be forgotten. Sarah walked away from the fire zone tired but victorious. She had faced one of the most dangerous situations of her life and had come through not only alive but as a hero. The experiences of that day would stay with her forever, a reminder that bravery, determination, and skill could turn even the most underestimated individual into a true lifesaver. After Sarah successfully guided the commander and several injured soldiers out of the fire zone, the entire unit was left in shock and awe. The soldiers who had once mocked her or doubted her abilities were now silent, watching her with a mixture of disbelief and admiration. For the first time, they began to see Sarah as more than just a medic. Her actions had proven that courage, skill, and quick thinking mattered more than rank, gender, or the roles people were assigned. The commander, who had initially been skeptical of her abilities, finally understood the truth. He realized that Sarah's calmness under pressure, her ability to make life-saving decisions, and her determination to act in the face of danger were qualities that many soldiers lacked. He had seen many trained fighters freeze or make mistakes during stressful situations, but Sarah had remained composed throughout, handling multiple crises simultaneously and ensuring that everyone under her care survived. It was impossible to deny her bravery and her competence. Word of her heroism began to spread throughout the unit. Some soldiers who had been openly critical of her now approached her cautiously, offering hesitant congratulations or quiet nods of respect. It was clear that their perception of her had shifted dramatically. Sarah had earned something that many people in the military spend years trying to achieve: genuine respect through action. She didn't seek recognition or praise, but the acknowledgement of her peers felt like validation for the months of hard work, training, and determination she had put into preparing for moments exactly like this. The transformation in the unit's atmosphere was almost immediate. Where there had been whispers of doubt and ridicule, now there was a subtle sense of unity and admiration. Soldiers who had once underestimated her began to pay closer attention to her actions, learning from her calm approach to crisis situations. Even small gestures, like helping her with gear or offering support during missions, became a sign that she had earned their trust. Sarah noticed these changes but didn't let them distract her from her responsibilities. She understood that respect was earned daily and that true leadership meant continuing to act with courage and competence, not just enjoying the admiration of others. The commander took a personal interest in acknowledging her contributions. He called her aside and spoke in a quiet, measured tone. "You've proven yourself today in ways that words cannot describe," he said. "I underestimated you, and I see now that your strength goes far beyond your role as a medic." For Sarah, these words were powerful, not because of the praise itself, but because they reflected a genuine recognition of her abilities. She had faced the fire and chaos head-on, and her actions had changed the commander's perception completely. Her courage also became an important lesson for the unit as a whole. Soldiers began to realize that labeling someone as just a medic or judging anyone based on their role or appearance was a mistake. Sarah had demonstrated that anyone, regardless of their assigned position, could rise to extraordinary challenges when determination and skill were combined with bravery. Her actions inspired others to think differently about teamwork and trust. The unit started to see that every member had unique strengths and that success depended on recognizing and utilizing those strengths effectively. For Sarah herself, the experience was transformative. She had faced one of the most dangerous situations of her life, saved multiple lives, and proven to everyone, including herself, that she was capable of extraordinary courage. The fire, smoke, and chaos had tested her physical and mental limits, and she had emerged stronger, more confident, and more resilient. Her own self-belief had grown, reinforcing the idea that obstacles and doubts from others were only temporary barriers that could be overcome through action. The unit's morale improved as a result of Sarah's bravery. Soldiers began to work together more effectively, inspired by the example she had set. They realized that courage was contagious and that one person's determination could change the outcome for an entire team. Even those who had been the harshest critics started to reevaluate their own attitudes, recognizing that respect should be earned through action rather than assumed based on rank or gender. Sarah also became a symbol of hope and inspiration for new recruits. Stories of her bravery spread quickly, not as exaggerated tales, but as real examples of what one person could do in a critical situation. The message was clear: being underestimated did not define your potential. What mattered was how you responded when the stakes were highest. Sarah's story reminded everyone that courage and skill, combined with determination and heart, could overcome doubt, ridicule, and even extreme danger. By the end of this turning point, the dynamics within the unit had shifted significantly. Sarah's peers no longer saw her as an outsider or someone to be underestimated. They saw her as a capable, fearless, and reliable member of the team, someone whose actions could inspire confidence and save lives. The commander, too, had a renewed sense of trust in her abilities, knowing that she could be relied upon in situations that demanded both courage and intelligence. Sarah, humble as ever, accepted the newfound respect quietly. She didn't boast or seek accolades, understanding that true recognition came from consistent action, not from a single event. But inside, she felt a quiet pride, knowing that she had not only faced incredible danger, but had also changed the way people around her thought about her. Her bravery had become a turning point, not just in her career, but in the culture of the unit itself. After Sarah's heroic actions during the fire mission, word of her bravery began to spread beyond just her immediate team. Soldiers who had once doubted her were now telling others about what they had witnessed. The tale of a medic who had fearlessly navigated burning buildings, saved multiple injured soldiers, and even rescued the commander himself captured everyone's attention. She had become more than a member of the unit. She had become a symbol of courage, skill, and determination. The first step toward formal recognition came when the commander officially recommended her for commendation. He spoke highly of her calmness under pressure, her quick thinking in critical moments, and her ability to lead when no one else could. Her actions had gone far beyond what was expected of a medic. She had risked her own life repeatedly to save others, showing extraordinary courage that deserved acknowledgement. This recommendation was more than just paperwork. It was a statement that Sarah had proven herself in the most intense situations imaginable. The unit held a ceremony to honor those who had demonstrated exceptional bravery during recent missions. Sarah stood quietly, not fully expecting the attention she was about to receive. When her name was called and the commander began to recount her deeds, the room fell silent. Soldiers listened intently as he described how she had faced fire and collapsing buildings without hesitation, tending to the wounded and guiding the commander himself to safety. The weight of her actions, spoken aloud, made everyone realize the extraordinary nature of what she had accomplished. As the commander pinned the medal to her uniform, Sarah felt a mix of emotions: pride, relief, and humility. She knew that the recognition was not about fame or ego. It was about validating the countless hours of training, the mental preparation, and the determination to act courageously when it mattered most. For her, it was a reminder that being underestimated did not define her abilities. Her actions did. The reaction of her peers was immediate and genuine. Many of the soldiers who had mocked or doubted her before now approached her with respect and admiration. Some offered quiet words of praise, while others simply nodded, acknowledging her bravery. The shift in attitude was profound. What had once been whispers of doubt and ridicule were now conversations about courage, skill, and leadership. Sarah's perseverance had not only saved lives, but had also changed the way her peers thought about her and what she could accomplish. Beyond the unit itself, Sarah's story reached other soldiers and officers. It became an example of how courage and determination could transcend expectations and stereotypes. People were inspired not just by the physical feats she had performed, but by the mindset she had demonstrated. She had shown that bravery is not about being fearless. It is about facing danger despite fear, and acting with precision and focus when others might freeze or falter. Sarah's recognition also served as a lesson in leadership. By observing her, others began to understand the importance of calmness, preparation, and decisive action under pressure. Her example highlighted that true leadership is not always about rank. It is about the ability to influence outcomes through skill, courage, and determination. Soldiers began to see that anyone, regardless of role, could rise to meet challenges and make a meaningful difference. Even as the accolades came, Sarah remained humble. She did not let the attention distract her from her duties or her commitment to helping others. She continued to train rigorously, mentor new recruits, and support her team in any way she could. Her actions became a quiet source of inspiration, showing that recognition is most meaningful when it reflects genuine skill and courage rather than ego or self-promotion. Over time, Sarah's story began to inspire others beyond her immediate environment. Young medics and soldiers in training units heard about her courage and began to model their own behavior after hers. They learned that perseverance, skill, and bravery could overcome doubt and prejudice, and that anyone willing to act decisively in critical moments could earn respect and admiration. Her example encouraged others to push past limitations, to take responsibility, and to trust in their abilities, no matter what others might think. The commander continued to publicly and privately acknowledge Sarah's achievements. In his eyes, she had become a trusted leader, someone whose judgment and courage could be relied upon in any situation. His initial skepticism had been replaced by profound respect, and he often cited her actions as an example for other soldiers to follow. Sarah had not only proven her worth, but had also become a standard-bearer for excellence in courage, skill, and integrity. By the end of this period, Sarah had fully transformed her standing within the unit. No longer seen as just a medic, she was recognized as a hero, a skilled professional, and a role model. Her actions had changed perceptions, inspired her peers, and created a lasting legacy of courage and determination. The medals and formal recognition were important, but the deeper impact lay in the respect she had earned and the inspiration she had sparked in others. Sarah understood that her journey was far from over. While this recognition was a milestone, it was not the end of her challenges. But she faced the future with renewed confidence, knowing that her actions had the power to influence, inspire, and save lives. She had proven that true strength comes from courage, skill, and the willingness to act when it matters most. A lesson that would guide her for the rest of her career. After Sarah received recognition for her bravery, she returned to her daily duties in the unit. On the surface, life went back to normal, training exercises, missions, and the routine of military life. But something had changed, both in her and in those around her. She was no longer the underestimated medic, the one whom her peers whispered about or doubted. She had proven her courage and competence in situations that tested her limits. And now, quietly but undeniably, she had become a source of inspiration. Sarah reflected often on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the first day in the unit, she had faced skepticism and ridicule. Many had assumed she was weak, incapable, or out of place, simply because of her role as a medic and because she was a woman in a predominantly male environment. Those early days had been some of the most challenging of her life, filled with long, grueling hours of training, whispered doubts, and deliberate tests from her peers. She remembered the exhaustion, the frustration, and the moments when she felt as though giving up might be easier. Yet, she had never allowed those moments to define her. Instead, she had used them to build strength, focus, and resilience. What Sarah realized in these reflections was that her journey was not just about proving others wrong. It was about proving to herself what she was capable of. Every step, every drill, Every mission had reinforced the truth that courage and skill are built through persistence and action. Her success in the fire mission, where she had saved the commander and multiple soldiers, was not a single act of heroism. It was the culmination of months of preparation, determination, and inner strength. It showed her that ordinary people, when tested under extraordinary circumstances, could rise to meet challenges beyond what anyone imagined. Her peers continued to treat her differently after that mission. Soldiers who had once mocked or doubted her now looked to her for guidance and support. They asked for her advice in medical training, observed her methods in emergencies, and quietly acknowledged her leadership when she made decisions under pressure. Even the commander, who had once been skeptical, now relied on her judgment in critical situations. He had learned that titles alone did not define ability. What mattered most was skill, courage, and the willingness to act decisively when others hesitated. Sarah's story began to extend beyond her own unit. New recruits in the training programs heard about the medic who had faced fire, saved lives, and earned the respect of even the highest-ranking officers. Her experience became a teaching point in leadership discussions and medical training exercises, showing that preparation, determination, and bravery were essential qualities for anyone who wanted to succeed in high-pressure environments. Young medics, especially women, were inspired by her example, realizing that they too could overcome prejudice and expectations through courage and skill. Despite the recognition and the admiration, Sarah remained humble. She did not allow the attention to make her arrogant or complacent. She understood that heroism was not about medals or praise. It was about responsibility, courage, and dedication. Every day, she continued to train rigorously, prepare for missions, and support her team. Her humility, combined with her bravery, made her not only respected but also deeply trusted. Soldiers knew that in any crisis, Sarah would act with precision, intelligence, and courage. One of the most important lessons Sarah carried forward was the understanding that respect must be earned through action, not assumed through position. Her journey had shown her that people often judge based on appearances, roles, or preconceived ideas. But when those judgments are challenged by courage and competence, perceptions change. The respect she had earned was not fleeting. It was built on the undeniable proof of her abilities in real-life situations, and it had lasting impact on those around her. Sarah also reflected on the personal growth she had experienced. The fear she had once felt, the exhaustion, and the doubts. These were no longer obstacles. They had become sources of strength. Facing danger had taught her resilience, quick thinking, and calmness under pressure. Each mission she completed reinforced the understanding that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. This mindset became a part of her, shaping the way she approached every challenge in life and in the military. As she continued her career, Sarah inspired a new generation of soldiers and medics. Her story became a reminder that determination and bravery can break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and redefine expectations. Soldiers began to see that everyone, regardless of rank, role, or background, has the potential to perform extraordinary acts when tested. Sarah's legacy was not just in the lives she had saved, but in the lessons she left behind. The proof that courage, skill, and persistence are powerful tools that anyone can cultivate. In the quiet moments, Sarah sometimes thought about the early days when she had been underestimated, when whispers of doubt surrounded her, and when the tasks seemed impossible. She realized that those moments had been essential, shaping her resolve and strengthening her character. Every doubt, every challenge, and every act of ridicule had prepared her for the moment when she could act decisively and prove her worth. And in that moment she had succeeded not for recognition, but for the people who needed her, and for the confidence she had gained in herself. By the end of her journey in this chapter of her life, Sarah had become more than a hero in a single mission. She had become a symbol of perseverance, courage, and the power of action over judgment. Her story reminded everyone that true strength lies not in titles, appearances, or assumptions, but in the willingness to face challenges, act decisively, and rise above doubt. Sarah's legacy was secure, not just in the medals and formal recognition she received, but in the respect, inspiration, and lessons she left behind for all those who would follow in her footsteps.